Hey everyone, Jay Whitner here with Kickstarter Coaching and our internet TV show, Crowdfunding Coverage, where we spend about 15 minutes each month going over what happened. So let's talk about April. There's news on both Kickstarter and Indiegogo in April. There were 11 big campaigns. Those 11 campaigns brought in over $15 million. The biggest campaign of the month was Pono Music, that we'll talk about later in our program when we cover 8 of the big campaigns. But first, our news, starting with Indiegogo. Indiegogo has changed their branding around and the look and feel of their website, which is hard to really do justice to it verbally, so go take a look at their site and see if you like the new look. There's a company that ran a Kickstarter campaign that was very successful. Their product was a device that lets you basically walk around in a virtual game environment, sort of like a treadmill for gaming. And they raised over $1 million on Kickstarter. And what's newsworthy now is that they've taken the next step and they've gotten money from the venture capital community, basically, $3 million as a follow-on to the $1 million they got on Kickstarter. So another bit of evidence that crowdfunding is sort of the first step now in many cases for moving on to the venture capital community. Pono Music had a really interesting campaign that we will talk about later on in the show, but they raised $6.2 million, which was the third highest Kickstarter campaign ever, and had some unique attributes that we'll cover later, but really a bit of groundbreaking stuff for Kickstarter, the third biggest. The SEC continues to throw some curveballs to the crowdfunding industry. There was news about the SEC's feedback to Michigan, which is one of the several states that are looking at doing interstate crowdfunding. So if you do crowdfunding just in one state, typically you're not bound by the federal regulations, you're bound by the state regulations. But what the SEC is saying is you can't use the traditional social media communication tools because somebody outside of Michigan might see a message. So this would be a big problem if the SEC sticks with this position. Hopefully they'll recant. Indiegogo has been doing more of a push for the film industry, and they put together a handbook on how to crowdfund for films. So you can go and take a look at that if you have a crowdfunding campaign that is either short film, long film, video, that kind of thing. Have a look. Some news on the equity crowdfunding area is that our crowd just got some good funding of their own, $25 million for their equity crowdfunding platform. And this is thought to be the biggest funding round for an equity crowdfunding platform to date. The Museum of Modern Art is teaming up a little bit with Kickstarter, and they're going to sell several items that were developed from Kickstarter campaigns. This is a prestigious kind of a thing to be working with the Museum of Modern Art, and it shows that the Kickstarter is maturing as a platform and that some really interesting products are being developed there. So 8 campaigns that we're going to talk about today in our show. There's quite a range of size. They range from about $300,000 to $6 million. The goals from a modest $12,000 to $800,000 goal was what they had. The length of the videos was all over the place, from under 2 minutes to 11 minutes long. And we'll talk about that when we get to that campaign, but I strongly suggest that you do not do an 11-minute video. The updates, everybody had plenty of updates in these successful campaigns, from 6 to 62 updates. Again, this was very successful, but I would recommend strongly that you don't try to do 62 updates. I don't think there's a need for that. In terms of the campaign length, 30 days up to 59. But if you look at the individual campaigns, most of them are more in the shorter duration, the 30, 40-day time frame. The longer, the 50, 60-day campaigns are not so prevalent. In the reward levels, from a low of 6 which is very manageable, to a high of 44, that really is quite a challenge when you go to fulfill your campaign. So when you're making your campaign, it's easy to get carried away. No, I want to do this, I want to do that. And be careful, because when it comes time to fulfill your campaign, you have to come across all these items, so it's challenging. Of these big campaigns in April, half of them were the first campaign that the creator had ever done, but half of them had done campaigns before, which I don't think I've seen quite that many experienced people in prior shows. So that may be a new trend that we're seeing now. And the average creator had backed 13 campaigns of their own. And this is a good thing if you're wanting to do a campaign. Think about it. You want to be perceived by the Kickstarter community as being supportive of the community. So it's much better for you if you have helped out a few campaigns, because people can see that. So the campaigns themselves. The first one is a blue jean campaign that's custom blue jeans, basically. They brought in $325,000, which is quite a bit of money. Some interesting aspects of their campaign were that they had a nice graphical link right in the main body of their text that links you to their website, so people visiting the campaign can go look at the website easily. They had a nice supplemental video, besides the main campaign video, that talked about their trade-in program, that you wear their jeans for a year and send them back in, they'll give you 50% credit toward another pair. They were good on updates, and their updates were nice multimedia updates. There were images and video in the updates to make it more visually appealing to people. The next campaign was kind of neat. This is a sort of a replacement for the power sockets at your house. So you take off the old plate, put on this new plate, and it has like a sort of a night light built into the bottom of this device so that you don't trip in the hallway and that kind of thing. So this allows you to still use the plugs that you had before, so you're not really losing anything. They brought in almost $500,000, which is quite respectable. And some interesting parts of their campaign is in the main body of the campaign, they had 3 different areas where it was like order now, buy now buttons, so that, again, after the campaign is concluded, people go to the campaign, they can order their stuff. They had an area on their campaign page that had media icons for the different media outlets that covered what they were doing, with mini quotes, which is a nice feature to have. This I'm seeing more of now. So you don't just see CNN, you see CNN's logo and then like 6, 8, 10 words of what CNN said. They also had a timeline of how they put their campaign together and how they're going to deliver. And they had early bird rewards, which is basically discounted pricing for people that commit early to the campaign. Next we have MicroView. This is for the do-it-yourself electronics community. A tiny device, but this one is neat in that it's so small and has a built-in display in the device. Some things that were different about their campaign, which brought in about $600,000, were that their main campaign video, it had little credits at the end of the campaign video, which I don't think I've really seen that many times before. And while they were running the credits, it was sort of like outtakes and bloopers from when they were making the video, which I thought was kind of nice. They had several GIFs in their campaign, which again sort of add to the rich feel of the campaign, have some of those little mini videos, the GIFs. They also had free worldwide shipping, which is a nice amenity to offer, particularly if your item for your campaign is very small and very light. You see from the picture, this device is perched on someone's finger, so certainly this is more of a doable thing if you have very small and lightweight items for your campaign. And in a newer trend, this campaign, they have an area of press contacts, like a media section in a campaign, which I don't recall seeing before, but I think that's a novel idea to get the media more engaged in your campaign. Next was a photography campaign. This is for really the avid photographer, maybe the professional photographer. They brought in a little over $650,000. So this is a motorized device that lets your camera pan and tilt and move back and forth on this track to get really nice professional images. So it was different in a few different ways, but the pricing from the base unit, which was like $400, to the high-end full-featured unit was like $1,900. So a much more diverse array of price points than you see in most of these campaigns. They had a lot of supplementary videos, how-to, training videos, that kind of thing, which if you have a complex, high-value product, probably make a lot of sense. And they showed pictures of the different prototypes that they'd gone through to prepare for this day. So that I thought also was kind of a nice thing. It showed the developmental milestones that they'd been through. Next we had a game, Mercs Recon, brought in $800,000. Games, as you probably are aware, are quite big on the Kickstarter platform. This game had a very complicated reward structure, which I will not take the time to try to explain. This happens often in some of these game campaigns. It's very complicated, lots of levels of things. They had 28 stretch goals in their campaign, including something that is somewhat new, I guess, still. That in addition to having stretch goals in terms of how many dollars that they'd raised in their campaign, they also had a couple of stretch goals pertaining to how many backers they had. So they had a stretch goal independent of the money thing. Also, they had a lot of items that were optional extras. If you want to buy an extra whatever, they had a lot of things like that in their campaign. So they can boost, I guess, beyond the base sale to the customer. This next one, I'm really curious about how this turns out. It's called the Ring, and they raised about $900,000. Well, it's a ring you put on your finger, and you can use it as like a remote control for various devices, smartphones, things like that. That you can do a lot of different things with it. They had the media icons with the mini quotes, like I mentioned on one of the earlier campaigns this week. They also had a press section for the media, which again is a newer thing. And they had 2 tiers of early bird rewards. They had early bird rewards and very early bird rewards, which I don't recall really seeing too often. So I guess they're rewarding the very, very first and the early ones separately with different price breaks. This next one is very interesting. This Hilby Goby campaign. This is on Indiegogo, and they raised a little bit over $1 million for their campaign. And the concept is a wearable, like a wristwatch style wearable. And in addition to tracking your physical fitness activities, which there's a lot of things that do that, this measures the amount of calories you're taking in automatically by somehow measuring like the blood sugar that you have. Like it's touching your skin, and it can somehow tell like how many calories you're consuming, and it puts all that information together and sends it to your smartphone, which is a cool idea. Hopefully that'll work well. They had on their campaign a patent summary. It was like some of the patent things that they had done. They had nice supplemental video on the campaign, and they had a distributor reward, which is something you don't really see on Kickstarter because of the limitations. On Kickstarter, you can only have up to 10 items. Kickstarter doesn't want you to have like mass production. But this one, it was on Indiegogo, and they had a distributor level reward that you could buy 50 of these devices, and then you could resell them. So you get like a deep discount for the volume. And the big campaign for April, Pono Music. This was put out by Neil Young, who, if you're younger, is a famous musician. The idea of the campaign is that your typical MP3 music that people have now on their mobile devices is compressed, and the quality is not really the best. It's very handy, it's portable, but the quality is largely missing on many of those devices. They have a new system for having very big digital files that put like the whole dynamic range, the whole music is there and available to you with a unique player. So this campaign did phenomenally well. They raised $6 million on Kickstarter, which was the third highest Kickstarter campaign so far. The video that they had for this campaign was about 11 minutes long, which is incredibly long for a campaign video, one of the longest I've ever seen, but very effective, because what they did is they had maybe 20 or so famous musicians, like celebrity level musicians, talking about how cool the sound quality was from this device. It got a lot of traction. The community, people were talking about it. They had 9,000 comments on their website. 9,000, unbelievable. And they again were using this media icons for their media coverage with little mini quotes. So congratulations to Kona Music. I have to see if this new technology, this new style will catch on, but at least they have the capital up front to make that happen. So thanks for your time. That's it for crowdfunding coverage for April of 2014. Check back with us in a few weeks, and we'll talk about what happened in May. Take care.